Hello, everyone. Today we're going to do a writing workshop. So writing is something that I use a lot as a tool to help me sort of align myself with my own goals and to really often understand better sometimes why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. Because as humans, we often sort of know what we might want to be doing. We know what would be helpful, and then often we're out there doing the exact opposite. There's so many reasons for that, and really actually writing is sort of a way to sort of access that deeper, wiser self is the way I think about it. The one that kind of has this sort of like bigger view about everything. And I'm going to be doing some reading today from this book that I really love. It's called The Willpower Instinct. It's by Kelly McGonigal. She is a researcher who looks at why people do what they do, basically. And she has, if you don't feel like reading the book, there's also a really great Google talk by her as well, where she just sort of sums up a lot of the information in this book. But I do recommend this book. And what she's talking about, so she really is talking about how willpower really isn't what we think of it as, kind of like strong arming ourselves into things. She actually talks about how that is often backfires. If we're kind of constantly strong arming ourselves into things, we get, sort of the opposite effect, which is both, I've been good, so now I can do this other thing. Sort of there's a whole dynamic that happens there, or we get the fatigue of that, and eventually the breakdown of that. And also very much it breeds this kind of all or nothing thinking where, if we're like forcing ourselves to do something and then we don't do that. So say we're like, saying we have to exercise every single day. And then we have one day where we like hurt our foot and then we don't exercise, then often that leads to just stopping the whole process. As opposed to a time when we're kind of really interacting with that wise self that say, I want this for myself. And so therefore I'm going to do these things. That kind of mindset doesn't really get this all or nothing type thinking, and doesn't sort of crash so easily when we have one minor slip up. So today what we're going to do is I have a few writing prompts, but I'm also going to read a little bit from this book. This is sort of, I took a lot of ideas from Kelly McGonigal in order to write the questions that we're going to journal about today. Just to keep in mind as you're doing this, like this is a thing that is fine to shred or burn or get rid of in any way. So if you need to write about, how really it's your, Uncle Frank who annoys you and, all the things, it's totally fine to do that in this space. Also too, you won't have to share anything today, only if you feel like you would like to. And if you do want to share anything, we can always take out, if you can request, and we'll take that part out. We do always make we make it blurry over the screen so that, on the recording, it doesn't show your face, but sometimes it has your voice. So just let us know if you want us to take it out entirely, because that's absolutely possible. So yeah, I think at first I just want to kind of like fully arrive here. So however you do that, just kind of like settle into your chair, or take a deep breath, or and know that we're here also really not so much to like whip ourselves into shape, but to really reconnect with ourselves, to really make sure that we're on the same page with ourselves as we kind of enter into this very challenging season for most people. Challenging, of course, very often also wonderful. And also, especially when it comes down to health goals and things like that, this can be a challenging season. There's a lot more food around. There's a lot more family around, which for a lot of people kind of brings out some old patterns or, different kinds of things that might be not really in alignment with what we're doing right now. And then also, changes in sleep schedules, and, sometimes there's alcohol involved, and, all kinds of different aspects that make it a little bit harder to stick with our health practices. So I want to first look at, so we're gonna, so the first section I'm gonna read here from Kelly McGonigal is about sort of different types of goals that we want to look at, or really she calls them willpower challenges. So things that we like to think about, things that sort of like are, very often what we want to do is create a framework so we can measure our current action based off of that, so again, in alignment with our goals. So this is what she describes as the three different types of willpower challenges. She says there's a I will power challenge. What is something that you would like to do more of or stop putting off because you know that doing it will improve the quality of your life? So that's going to be the I will. And then the I won't power challenge. What is the stickiest habit of your life? What would you like to give up? I'll read this again when we're about to write it. Give up or do less of because it's undermining your health, happiness, or success. So what is the thing that really is having a negative effect on your well-being? And then the I want power challenge. What is the most important long-term goal you'd like to focus your energy on? What immediate want is most likely to distract you or tempt you away from this goal? So we often have these kind of short-term wants that make it hard for us to be in alignment with our long-term wants. So I'm going to go ahead and reread those, and we're going to leave about like 1 minute after each one to write about which one of those, at least one thing under each of those categories. So first we're going to do the I will power challenge. What is something that you would like to do more of or stop putting off because you know that doing it will improve the quality of your life? So we're just going to have 1 minute to write about that. All right. And now the I won't power challenge. What is the stickiest habit in your life? What would you like to give up or do less of because it's undermining your health, happiness, or success? And then the next one is the I want power challenge. And there's two parts to it. So the first part is, what is the most important long-term goal you'd like to focus your energy on? And then the second part is, what immediate want is most likely to distract you or tempt you away from this goal? All right. We're going to stay kind of focused in on our own writing for now, and then kind of at the end we can share about if anybody wants to share. But for right now, we're just going to kind of stay focused in on what on our own writing. So kind of moving forward, so that sort of creates a little bit of a framework about where you'd like things to go. I want you to close your eyes for a minute and just sort of picture yourself moving through Thanksgiving or holiday activities and gatherings. Just sort of imagine like arriving at wherever you arrive at, or having people come to your house and go through sort of like the routine or the day, and sort of look for those places where you feel tension in your body, where you feel stress or tension. And they might be surprising, it might be, it might be a surprising moment, but just sort of walk all the way through those, and you can do multiple holidays, just kind of walk through and find those places where you have a little bit of tension. And when you're ready, go ahead and just sort of write down the little moments that came to mind that just felt a little bit tense. And then now think about what kind of things do you tend to do when you feel that tension? For some people, it's that they eat a little bit more. For some people, it's that they grab an alcoholic drink. For other people, it's that they talk too much or feel frustrated, or just sort of what is your response to that tense moment? All right. And you can, if you're watching this video, feel free to pause it at any point if you need to have a little bit more time. So then I'm going to read a little bit from this book again, The Willpower Instinct. It's this part is called Under the Microscope, Meet Your Two Minds. Every willpower challenge is a conflict between two parts of oneself. For your own willpower challenge, describe these competing minds. What does the impulsive version of you want? What does the wiser version of you want? Some people find it useful to give a name to the impulsive mind, like the cookie monster to the part of you that always wants instant gratification, the critic to the part of you that likes to complain about everyone and everything, or the procrastinator to the person who never wants to get started. Giving a name to this version of yourself can help you recognize when it is taking over and also help you call in your wiser self for some willpower support. So thinking about back to those really the kind of moments of tension, maybe what you do is the thing that's the wise self thing to do. But sort of like looking at those things, if you want to give a little name to that part that say wants to do something impulsive or wants to sort of get out of that tension by doing something that's self-soothing, but in a not super effective way, like eating a cookie, or for some people it's really the part that is kind of the avoider, like wanting to kind of avoid things, and so either kind of shuts down or gets a little distant. So if there's, no, you don't need to put a name to anything, but if it's helpful to, sometimes that's a really great way to kind of feel that when it's coming up. All right. And now, kind of thinking about that, we're going to go back to our willpower challenges, the I will, I won't, I want. And you could choose any one that feels, the most compelling to you, or sort of like the most helpful or meaningful to you. But this is just you can do this with all three if you want to, or you can do this with any situation that you find yourself in. But this is a way of sort of like identifying the two parts of yourself, the more impulsive part and then the kind of wiser self part. So for your willpower challenge, describe your two competing selves. What does the impulsive version of you want? And what is the wiser version of you want? Now imagine, what is the harder thing to do in that situation? Imagine yourself facing your willpower challenge and doing the harder thing. What makes it hard? All right. And then another thing to sort of touch base with is what do you tend to tell yourself just before you act against your own goals? So for some people, this can look like, I'm too tired to exercise. It's been a long day, or, I've been really good. I'm just going to have this cookie because I've been so good. Uh, or these 5 cookies, as the case may be. So just kind of like, what is that little message that's kind of your open the door message? All right, so let's stop here. We're going to have 2 other writing sections that are going to be a little bit longer. Each is going to be about 10 minutes. But for right now, let's kind of stop and regroup and see if anybody wants to share anything about anything that came out of that process, or anything that was kind of surprising. Or I can start and say that actually that message, that like, what do I tell myself right before I do something, is some version of like, this is my chance, this is my one opportunity to eat this food, or to have, to be with these people, and so I'm not gonna go do something else. And so it kind of is like a little bit of a, this is like a scarcity thing of this is my chance, and therefore I gotta take this chance, this opportunity to do this thing. And that's actually not very true sometimes, because also I could have a chance to be with those people and go on a walk with them. I don't have to be sitting in the living room with them. Or I could enjoy the one small portion of something versus eating multiple portions of something. So yeah, that's one thing that I was kind of surprised by. Does anybody else have anything? All right. So now we're going to go into the slightly longer section. So Kelly McGonigal, especially in that Google Talk, she does a lot of talking about this relationship with our future selves. So really that's one of the biggest indicators for whether or not people do engage in health behaviors, is whether they have a sense of their future self, whether they have a relationship with their future self. And really a lot of it is just sort of like your future self being a person that you can imagine and that you have, you're caring for. I actually, and she says it in this really interesting way. She's like, well, if you don't kind of know your future self, you don't have a sense of your future self, you're basically at every given moment, you're like making a choice about whether or not you want to do something for this person that you know really well, who's your present self, who's like really, wants to just, stay in bed a little bit longer this morning, and some rando, who you don't even know, who like, why would you do something for that person? So, so the idea is kind of to have a relationship so that that there's a balance there between, that morning moment when it's like cold and I'm in my bed and I know I really want to work out, and I know that, like, even my later today self will be so grateful that I did, but my right now self is really doesn't want to do it. If I have a kind of constant awareness of my future self, then I can have more likelihood to actually do the thing that I need to do to take care of my future self. I know this, for some people, this feels a little weird. So, just go with it. If you don't feel comfortable writing about it, that you can just kind of write something, just about kind of like what your plans are, or sort of give yourself a little pep talk, whatever feels right to you. But really, if you can kind of get a sense of your future self, or you can just describe your future self, you can also go with that, if you want to just sort of, feels too weird to write a letter to your future self. Then you can just kind of describe what your future self is like. And that can be your future self in January. That can be your future self in, 3 weeks. That can be your future self in 2 years. So you can kind of just get a sense, first we'll kind of get a sense about our future self. And then we're going to write a letter to our future self, particularly about this holiday season. It can be about the things that might be challenging. It can be about the plans that we have for staying healthy this holiday season. It can be about just sort of like things that we're doing for our future self right now, today. It doesn't even have to be about the holiday season. So first, and then we're going to have a letter where we're going to write a letter from our future self, giving ourselves advice about how to navigate this holiday season. Because really the future self is often to that kind of wise self, that one that, can kind of see the big picture of things and see how all of our actions sort of do end up having an effect on our overall well-being. So first we're going to just kind of take a minute to sort of picture our future selves. So you can kind of like go into the future, sort of picturing yourself kind of walking up to your future self as if you're, meeting for coffee or for a walk or something like that. And just sort of picture your future self. A lot of people use like a future self that's a few years out, like a 2 or 3 years out kind of self. And just sort of, meet your future self, sort of picture your future self, how he or she is, what he or she looks like, what he or she acts like, and just sort of like sit down, like we're going to have a conversation with that future self. So first we're going to write a letter to our future self, just about, and that can be very immediate, like what do I want to do this holiday season to take care of my future self? How am I going to, what things am I going to do with thoughtfulness towards my future self? Or it could be kind of like, what do I plan to do over the next year? Or what are ways that I, or it could even be like, hey, future self, I'm sorry, I've not been so good to you lately. Or whatever you would like to sort of communicate to your future self. And we're actually going to take 10 minutes on that one. And if you finish early, feel free to do what you need to do, but we'll come back together at about 8:46. 8:46. Okay. All right. Go ahead and get started on that. And I'll play a little bit of music just so you know that it's writing time. All right, we can go ahead and kind of regroup and go with the next writing prompt. So the next writing prompt is really a letter from your future self to yourself. And it might be a letter of advice. It might be a letter of gratitude. It might be probably a little bit of all of those things. Generally, this letter has a lot of like of it's okay, you're doing well, kind of a tone to it for a lot of people, but it might be different for you. So this is really kind of imagining being your future self, looking back at yourself now and saying and giving your, sort of giving some insight about kind of some of the bigger things that are happening, and why it's so hard to do the things that are good for us, but also what we can do to make those things possible. So we'll just do about 5 minutes on this one. And that's really the future self talking to our present day self. So I'll go ahead and start some music unless anybody has any questions about that. Okay. All righty. Is that enough time for everybody? All right, great. Anything that came out of those letters that that anybody would like to share?
Just basically to be kind to myself and not to be so hard on myself, that don't get caught up in criticisms when you fail, that you're going to be able to meet your goal.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, yeah, that's a powerful one, because like how much when we get caught up in the criticisms, it just sort of makes us get stuck in that place sometimes for a lot longer. Yeah, that's really, I always think about how no one ever hated themselves to health is like a thing that I say to people sometimes, because it's like we all try it. Like it seems like a really good idea. Like, oh, just like I just gotta, really, yeah, and really like that kind of criticism of can really just snowball into more and more behaviors that just don't really serve us. So
Right. To learn to let it go. That's what I said. Just
yeah,
let it go and
yeah,
move forward.
yeah.
That you'll be able to reach your goal. Just don't get stuck in criticizing yourself for failing at that time. That you'll. So.
Oh, that's beautiful, to let it go and to move on and to start a new day, any time of the day. Like, yep. I love it. I love it. I know for me, one thing that came out that was really in my last letter from my future self was remember that being active is not a chore, it is a gift. And it's like, oh right, like sometimes when I'm in the mode, I kind of feel like, oh, I gotta do this, I should do this, and like the real truth is like when I go out for a walk, it's always the highlight of my day, one of the highlights of my day at least. And or if I go out for a bike ride or something like that, it's always a gift, and it always makes me feel so good. And sometimes actually if I think of it as a chore, it sort of like gets pushed around, it doesn't really even happen. So, or I think about all the things that need to get done beforehand, and it can't be at the bottom of the list, because we never get to the bottom of the list, that's for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I think that really sort of just moving forward into especially kind of like these sort of, whether they're higher stress situations or just sort of like more opportunities for all of the things that whether it's being more sedentary or eating foods that we don't really like to eat as much, or whether it's alcohol or not sleeping enough or any of those things. It's just sort of, we're moving into a season where sometimes those things are harder to come by, or easier to come by, as the case may be. And so really kind of keeping that line of communication open between ourselves and our future self, and also and that wise self that sort of has that bigger picture vision of things, that remembers why we do the things we do, and why we want to kind of make the harder choice sometimes. And sometimes it's really about taking a deep breath right before, having those kind of those signals, a sense of like what we start telling ourselves right before we do something that is maybe not in our best interest, is great to just even know, like, oh, I'm headed down that path, like as soon as I hear myself say, oh, I'm too tired, or like, oh, it's just, this is my one chance to have, my aunt's cheesecake, whatever, it's, just having that little, like that little flag that comes up that's like, oh, this is my slippery slope here, here we go. So, and I think that really, it's not about telling ourselves that we're bad or that we did something bad. It's really about just sort of kind of constantly realigning and just sort of refinding our way back to that place, which is where, we really feel like we're doing some things that are, beneficial to ourselves and our bodies and our well-being, and, and also just sort of balancing out that, sort of in the moment feeling, the impulsive in the moment, needing for self-soothing sometimes when we're in stressful situations. Like that is a really valid need, is a little bit of self-soothing, and also how we do that, whether we go, just to the bathroom and take some deep breaths, versus if we, go and grab a cookie or something like that, but I think that the need for self-soothing is very, very present, very real, and very necessary. And also we can do that in ways that actually bring us closer to ourselves, instead of in ways that make us a little bit more distant from ourselves. So I'm hopeful that this writing, and you can pull out this writing exercise whenever you want to, whether that's, looking at your I will, I won't, I want, or writing a new I will, I won't, I want, or even just like writing about a situation that happened that was like, I was, I encountered my aunt's cheesecake, and which is really amazing, by the way. And, and I decided that would make a very good breakfast. And, and even though I didn't really, I didn't really feel that way. And it did kind of, it ends up making me feel pretty crummy. Sort of what all went into that moment and into that decision. And then also with compassion for myself, not so much like a, but even just like a, reflection on that, or even better, before I'm sitting here thinking about having cheesecake for breakfast, what does that really mean for my future self, even my 1 hour from now self, and maybe finding a little compromise between my sort of wise self and my impulsive self, that could look like, oh, I'm gonna, go have something else that I really enjoy for breakfast, and save that for later. So yeah, I hope that this is helpful, just as like a grounding tool, and just sort of a alignment tool, as you move through the holidays here. Yeah. Anything else that anybody wanted to say before we stop the recording?